When I found out that a video had been released and that a suspect was one of our very own, I was very angry.
We wanted perspective on the case, and we turned to former Broward County Sheriff Al Lamberti. Lamberti called it basic handling of evidence that was violated and foresees major problems for the prosecution. He says in a case of this magnitude, the first people to watch that video should be the jury.
So many people are going to watch this, and I guarantee you a defense attorney is going to make the claim that releasing that video has contaminated the jury pool.
On February 14th, our suspect approached the 1200 building from the east side, which is the direction of Pine Island Road. This is your schematic for the first floor of the 1200 building. East would be to my right. If we could pause here for a second.
This guy got out of an Uber. He walked across the parking lot, and he walked in the door. Those doors were unlocked. There's a reason why he picked building 12, in my view, from seeing it now and hearing this many times, is because it was a fishbowl.
The shooter enters the stairwell immediately to the right. He's carrying a rifle case at that point. A witness enters the stairwell, if we could pause here, as the suspect is taking the weapon out and preparing it. He makes a statement to the witness, who immediately flees and seeks help.
He was unchallenged, unfettered, on anything. He walked in. He walked into the door. The one kid walked in behind him. He walked into the stairwell, took the gun out of the bag, loaded it, and was ready to go.
As suspect enters the hallway, he begins moving west, and he immediately opens fire. As you can see, we have several victims there on the south side in front of the doorway to 1215. They immediately come under fire and are injured, and these injuries eventually become fatal. At this point, if we could pause here, the suspect goes to classroom 1216 and fires from outside of the classroom into the classroom. He strikes 4 students inside this room, one of which is instantly fatal. He does pause momentarily, appears to be taking things out of a backpack that he does not take with him. Continuing west, as he passes the previously injured victims, he does fire additional rounds. He then begins to fire into classroom 1214, again from the outside in, if we could pause there. We have 2 victims that are struck fatally in this room and 4 additional victims who are injured. And then returns back to the door of room 1216, where he fires additional rounds into that classroom. We have 2 more victims who are struck fatally and another victim who is injured. If we could pause here.
He never went into any one classroom. Never went into one classroom. He fired through the doors because of the window in the door. And the fatalities were largely the kids that were in the sight picture as you look through the door.
Suspect at that point goes to the outside of classroom 1213 and again fires into the classroom from the outside. We have 1 victim who was struck fatally and several others who are injured. The suspect continues west. As he passes the previously injured victim, he fires additional rounds, and those wounds are fatal. If we could pause here. Now the suspect proceeds to the 2nd floor. There are no victims in this hallway. If we could pause here. As the suspect continues in an eastward direction down this hallway, he does fire into 2 classrooms on the 2nd floor. However, no victims are struck by gunfire. He's then going to move on to room 1234, where he fires several more rounds that also travel through and out the exterior windows. And you can continue. The suspect then continues to the east side stairwell, where he's going to advance to the 3rd floor.
The animation that you saw is based upon witness statements and video. As I told you, there's extensive video on the interior of the building, so it's based upon the video and based upon witness statements, and that's why we were able to, in the animation, to pinpoint with accuracy what we were able to convey to you.
On the 3rd floor, we have a response to the earlier fire alarm that is still going off at this point. So you do have several victims and witnesses that are outside of classrooms. As the suspect comes onto the third floor, there is a victim in front of the door of 1256. He immediately shoots that victim and begins to shoot westward down the hallway at the other victims and witnesses who were in the hallway. As you can see in 1255, we do have another witness who was struck by fragments and does survive their injuries. Further down the hallway, you can see three, actually a total of four yellow dots. These are all victims who were initially injured by the gunfire. Continue. And pause here. At this point, the suspect turns his back to the rest of the hallway. We believe at that point to reload his weapon. And pause here. As that group of students and faculty make their run for that stairwell, the suspect does realize that he's got more victims moving in the hallway and opens fire. We have two victims that are struck with fatal injuries and another who is injured. And pause here. As the suspect continues west down the hallway, as he passes victims he is earlier injured, he fires additional rounds at these victims, injuring them fatally. And if we could pause here. Now, room 1240 is a teacher's lounge on the third floor. It's on the west corner of this building. From inside this lounge area, the suspect, over a period of approximately 2.5 to 3 minutes, and again, we have some visual issues here, so we don't know the sequence exactly, but at some point he fires 5 rounds.
Another thing is, and just so you know, on the third floor, when he went into the teacher's lounge on the third floor, there was no question that that man was in there to act as a sniper, and he was going to kill as many kids as he possibly could that were outside that school. He had a bipod for that AR-15, and he was trying to set it up, and the only reason why he didn't is that thankfully he couldn't shoot through those windows, and the bullets fragmented because of the double pane glass. He tried to open the windows, and he couldn't get them open.
The rounds fragment and splinter immediately, and they do not find targets. The suspect then leaves the teacher's lounge and goes into the stairwell on the third floor landing. On this third floor landing, the suspect leaves his rifle, as well as other equipment that he had brought with him during this incident. He then flees down the stairs and out of the building.
When I found out that a video had been released and that a suspect was one of our very own, I was very angry.
We wanted perspective on the case, and we turned to former Broward County Sheriff Al Lamberti. Lamberti called it basic handling of evidence that was violated and foresees major problems for the prosecution. He says in a case of this magnitude, the first people to watch that video should be the jury.
So many people are going to watch this, and I guarantee you a defense attorney is going to make the claim that releasing that video has contaminated the jury pool.
And then they taught us, they said that if there's like a fire drill, they want all the kids to run out, so that would make an easier shot. And then you just hear a bunch of like pounding, but I thought it was someone hitting something, and I kind of look at my friend Nick, and he's like, do you hear that? And like everybody just starts pushing each other, running, and then we're kind of just like, is this what's happening? And then we realized like we thought this was a drill because they said they'll use blanks in a drill. All the kids to go outside so they could start shooting up. So they started shooting from the first floor up, because there's only 2 exits in the freshman building, so everybody started running to the other exits, but that's when the other shooter started coming up. So everybody, and then I thank God to this teacher who opened up her door and let all of us in. She got shot in the arm trying to open the door, and then the other teacher, he got shot in the head trying to cut the other students, and I heard him get shot, and I was like, oh no, they're like out for cold blood. And basically, when we were all free, when the policeman bust down the window, the door, we finally got out, and like they started yelling at us to keep focused and to pay attention ahead, the army people, because they didn't want us to see the bodies that they hid in the corner. They were putting mats over them so we wouldn't see them.
They're trying. So you think there was more than? Do you think there was more than one shooter? There's 3 shooters. That's what I hear. Definitely.
I know one teacher's dead. That's what there's 2 security guards who are dead. The teacher's dead, and then my other teacher, she got shot in the arm, but she's fine. She just started walking home too.
She said, I don't know if this is real or fake, because we had rumors going around the school that the police would do a fake code red with fake fake guns, not actual, but sounding real. And I thought at the beginning that this was it was all a drill. It was just a drill. Backpacks thrown everywhere. It was like a movie scene. There was gunpowder all over the floor. It was just so real, but it felt so fake.
As I was going down the stairs, I heard a couple shots fired. Everyone was freaking out, saying that it was a gun. And as we were walking, the whole class together, I actually was speaking to the suspect, Nikolas Cruz. And as I was speaking to him...
You were walking down the hall. He had already fired at that time.
Yes, sir, with him.
Weren't you scared?
In the moment I wasn't, because there was definitely another shooter involved, but...
Oh, you think he was not the only one?
No, definitely not.
Why do you say that?
Because when shots were fired, I saw him after the fact. So, and the shots were coming from the other part of the building. So there definitely had to be 2 shooters involved, I believe.
That's the first I've heard of that.
It was absolutely horrifying, but we actually thought it was a drill initially, because we had been hearing about having a possible code red drill.
You thought it was a drill, and you only knew it was real from looking at headlines in your phone?
Yeah, on our phone. We saw it on Twitter once it was eventually trending, but then we also saw multiple headlines coming from local affiliates like WPLG, which is the ABC affiliate here. I think it was WSVN, which is Channel 7 here. Just all of them coming in and us looking them up, and that's how we were really able to find it. And that's how we knew this was anything but a drill.